Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to On Hit Effect. I am Mezzo, aka the President James Adams, at least according to Doa and Flake, that is. If you're new here, I'm something of a big Iyslander fan, particularly the arcane varieties, not so much of a Wounded Bull person. And that's really fortunate for me because, in my opinion at least, Arcane Iyslander happens to be one of the most well-positioned decks going into this Skirmish season meta for the Blitz metagame. And that's not just theory. I have receipts to prove that. About a week and a half ago, I played in the Realm Brawl 1K Blitz event in Chicago. It was an absolute blast. We actually swept through Swiss, the quarterfinals and semifinals, with a clean 7-0 on the list I want to talk about today. Ended up splitting the finals with my teammate and friend, Mo Bodesley, aka Mark Johnson, of Team Ascent. Shout out Mark, who's Kano versus Iyslander in the finals. We didn't play the game out, so I guess that's the one clickbaity thing about this video, is that, like, I'm first on a technicality. But, you know, we take 7-0s when those happen. And so I wanted to share this list with you, the audience, so that you also can, you know, have fun at your skirmishes and just absolutely roast some people with icy arcane doom. So the first question we have to answer is, why play Iyslander? Like, what makes this deck good? Well, I firmly believe it is the second best deck in the meta. The first best is Kano, but Kano's really hard to play, like really, really hard to play. And I firmly believe this is the number one deck that has the best difficulty to payoff ratio. You get to do fun wizardy things, but you don't have to just absolutely melt your mind trying to find lethal every game. The turn cycles end up being relatively repetitive, very familiar, and consistent. This deck's consistency and knowing what you're going to get to play and not having to blindly Kano off the top is one of its strongest arguments to play this deck. Absolutely love it. So let's break down what we're looking at here in terms of the 40 cards main deck and the 11 equipment. We're going to start with the types of cards that we see in the main deck. I'll talk about some notable exclusions. Thanks, Sam. Talk about some cards we're not playing in the 40. Then discuss when do we play which of the 11 equipment. Look at what a typical play pattern is, just like the average turn cycle. And then I've been getting asked a lot of questions about what the mirror looks like. So I've kind of broken down the mirror. We'll talk about right at the end. And then we'll go into some live gameplay, because what's a deck without seeing it in action, right? So first off, the types of cards in the main deck. We can look at our default equipment suite, but we'll come back to that later once we understand kind of how the deck ticks. Just keep in mind that the deck is almost exclusively built around the idea that we want to maximize value out of Waning Moon on the average turn cycle. So looking at our 40 cards, there's kind of 4 categories of cards we're playing in our main deck. The first is Efficient Arcane. These are 12 cards that are 40. It's red and blue Aether Hail. red and blue Aether Quickening, and red and blue Scalding Rain. Now, Hail obviously makes sense. It's just like an Iyslander staple, right? On rate Arcane, make a Frostbite. Scalding Rain, okay, we can see it, right? A lot of people raise their eyebrows when they see Aether Quickening, because we're not playing Crucible of Aetherweave. The only way to trigger Surge on this is Metacarpus nodes, but spoiler alert, you're never doing that. The Surge text is irrelevant. The reason we play Quickening is having access to 12 copies of this on-rate Arcane is so important for the deck's consistency. And what I mean by on-rate Arcane is, think about on your turn, you pitch 1 blue to play a red Scalding Rain, substitute Quickening or Hail there as you will. And you're getting 2 cards for 4+2 Arcane. Over AB3, that leaks a point of damage. And it also is very awkward for your opponent to block unless they have exactly AB4. So you're actually, because if they pitch a blue to stop AB3 on the 4, what are they going to pitch another card to stop 2 Arcane on the second? So you end up leaking 1 to 3 damage typically just by playing those, as well as stripping a blue from your opponent's hand. And just being on-rate Arcane is really sick. That's on our turn. We're winning Munas for 2 damage, right? Obviously, we're playing the blues as well. And on our opponent's turn, once we arsenal those, Moon is coming in for 3, plus the 2 from the blue card. Means that we're getting off of a card and 1 blue pitch. 5 Arcane, at instant speed, whenever we went to present it to our opponent. With Aether Hail, you get a Frostbite stapled onto that. It's like the rate on that is obscene, and is something that Arcane decks really probably shouldn't have access to. Just the fact that you can like consistently do this almost every turn cycle is one of the strongest arguments for this deck. Now, we can't play 40 Scalding Rains as much as I wish we could. I think I would do that if I could. So we have to have some extra filler cards to pad out our reds at least. So the next batch of cards I'm running essentially are our Tall Arcane. These are our Emeritus Scoldings, one of the best cards in the deck, right after the efficient 1-for-4 Arcanes. Ice Bolts, which fill a solid role player as just being 2-for-5 Arcane or blue 2-for-3 Arcane. Frostbite obviously is a nice little bonus. And then Swell Tidings, Voltic Bolt, these are really interchangeable because, like I said, with Aether Quickening, the Surge is never happening. Swell Tidings is like technically strictly superior to Voltic, but it's really not a significant difference. So we play these because like our primary game plan is to present Arcane every turn cycle. So we need as many Arcane cards as we can. These fill a nice role as just being a little bit taller. So like they're guaranteed to go over AB4, which is the most that you'll really ever see out of your opponents. So they're good to chip. They block 3. They're not quite as efficient as the 1-for-4s because you have to pitch 2 cards in order to play them plus Moon. But, you know, pitching a blue just to play a red Ice Bolt, not ideal, but it is a 2-card 5 Arcane, which is only 1 point below our 2-card 6 with our ideal cards like Red Aether Hail, Red Aether Quickening. Emeritus in particular ends up being a really important card though, because of that on your opponent's turn clause. And what that means is that it actually extends our kill range kind of unnaturally above what your opponent would typically expect. If you can jockey into a position at the point of the game where you can arsenal blue Emeritus, you draw into a red Emeritus, and you have 9 resources available. So we're typically playing Metacarpus nodes to extend our kill range. Red Emeritus from hand, blue Emeritus from arsenal, 2 Metacarpus nodes triggers, plus Waning Moon is 9 resources for 15 arcane damage at instant speed. Your opponents start at 20. You can kill your opponent as early as their turn 1. If you go first and they take 5, that's never going to happen. But turn 2 kills are stupidly consistent with this deck. In that 1K that I was talking about, I played against Chain twice. Chain died on his turn 2, both games. when I say this deck is bannable, I mean this deck is like stupid. So we filled out kind of our red suite and some of our blues with more tall arcane cards. The rest of our blues we want to fill out with disruption. When we can't draw the exact perfect arcane to throw at our opponent every turn, we need to disrupt them to slow them down so that we can get to those really efficient arcane hands. So we're running things like Blizzard. Yes, it's a no block, but it just kind of trades a blue from your hand for a blue from your opponent's hand, can really slow them down. And it is an ice card for Channel 8 Frigid, which is a very important card in some of the really aggressive matchups where we're worried about just getting completely run over. This card is very, very important against Dash, Fi, those kinds of things, although they're not super popular decks. Hey, welcome, Jesse. Darren, did my list draw inspiration from any other decks? I for sure, like... I don't know who inspired who. I know me, Xenoliner, Toonstar, a bunch of us in like the big Discord in the Flesh and Blood community Discord server kind of like had a little arms race to develop Blitz Iyslander after the most recent round of bannings. I think we all ended up on a relatively similar place. I'll talk a little bit about exclusions and how my list differs from them in just a moment after I go over the Maindeck cards. But definitely, like, we were all in cahoots as we were building Blitz Iyslander, and this list takes inspiration from them for sure. But CLF is super important, even just as an ice blue blot 3. Cold Snap, it does the thing that we want, where it's a free Waning Moon plus a Frostbite, increases our consistency, lets us dig for that next red arcane spell that we want to find. The Arsenal freezing can be relevant, but this is so fast that a lot of opponents just don't end up ever arsenaling. Similar thing with Polar Blast, except the Arsenal part, but if our opponents are arsenaling, this is just as good. It's just a free Waning Moon and a Frostbite, which is really nice. Frosting, never really want to play this card, but it's Ice Blue Blot 3. It technically does Arcane, so it like meets the minimum bar of going in the deck. For sure, we can add something to it. We can add something in place of it in the future if we get better cards. Similarly, kind of like at the bottom of the list of cards in the deck is Ice Eternal. This is a blue block 3. It doesn't really do a lot, but what it is nice for is that on turn 0, if you draw it, you can play Ice Eternal unfused to give your opponent like 2 to 3 Frostbites, and they can't interact. And so you can just kind of start with your opponent down a blue in hand-ish. You arsenal your blue arcane spell. And that's a really nice way to push damage when you have to go first on your opponent's first turn. Scour is kind of like a necessary evil. It's a safety valve for the meta, specifically against Chain to eat away his soul shackles, and Prism so that she can't overload the board with Spectra, because Red Prismatic Shield is one of our biggest nightmares, or the Spectral Shields. It's fine in matchups that aren't Chain or Prism because it ends up just being a blue block 3. So there's not a super high opportunity cost to playing both copies. And I think that they can really create opportunities for you to steal games that otherwise would have been very difficult to win. Lastly, Winter's Bite. This is really nice just on their turn. It's 2 resource taxes for when you don't draw like an arcane spell. On our turn, it can take a card out of their hand before you present something, which is not the best, but it's fine. It's an ice blue. We have to make some concessions because running just a million like zaps is not the way to go. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then the last category after Efficient Arcane, Tall Arcane, and our Disruption cards is attack actions. And this is kind of highly contested, I think. This is where a lot of Blitz Iyslander lists differ. I firmly believe that you should be playing Nourishing Emptiness and just Nourishing Emptiness in Blitz. Everyone respects Wizards in Blitz with Arcane Barrier 2 to 4 because there's so many sideboard slots that they never end up having to cut AB. It's just kind of free to bring AB3. And so that means that Nourishing almost always hits. It's almost always live in basically every game you play. And 2 for 6 on hit +1 intellect reads a lot like a 2-card 9 to 10. It's extremely efficient. It blocks 3 in case your opponent did bring the armor to block it out. And it has a very specific utility case, which is that this is, as far as I've found... Oh, are we having camera issues? All right, I think I'm back. As far as I've found, this is one of our best mirror breakers. So in the wizard mirror, no one brings armor. Or I actually bring armor, but that's changing as this meta is shifting, I think, going into the skirmish season. Talk about that in just a second. So nourishing is always hitting for at least 3. You pitch a blue to play it, so it leaves a resource floating for you to charge Constellus if they throw arcane at you. And it gives you a 5-card hand, which means that you're going to have a free card buffer if they try to present arcane on their turn, and make sure that you have those 6 resources or 9 resources so that you can presumably go off with your double emeritus on the next turn cycle. It just really increases the consistency of the kill, I've found, and kind of breaks this weird staring contest like cat and mouse game that ends up happening in the mirror. Those are the 40 cards in the deck. There are, of course, some notable exclusions. Frost Hex is a big one because we have Ice Eternal but not the Hex. In general, I think Hex is just too slow for Blitz. Yes, it's an Ice Blue block 3, which is like all of the individual boxes you want to be checking. Excuse me. But spending 2 cards to get a Hex down that might deal 1 to 2 arcane over the rest of the game is such a... Sorry, I'm having some internet connectivity issues. All right, well, the show must go on. Hopefully this is getting recorded well enough. Committing 2 cards to putting a Hex down on the board is just so slow. The only matchup where it's remotely relevant against is like a full fatigue Oldhim idea. But and that Oldhim list, this theoretical Oldhim list at least, is playing like, still running fine, good. Okay, my computer is just lying to me. So there's a theoretical boogeyman for this deck. Full fatigue Oldhim, which is like 40 blues and Sledge of Anvilheim and Arcane Barrier 4. And that is a pain in the butt, and Frost Hex would definitely help there. But I don't think you can respect that list because it loses to like every other deck that isn't Wizard, and it especially loses really hard to Prism, which is kind of one of the gatekeepers of the current Blitz meta. And so I think Hex ends up not making the list, just because we want to be as focused as possible on this offensive arcane plan. The other cards, speaking of offensive arcane cards, that we aren't playing are the red 0 for 3s, like Icebind, Encase, etc. And the reason that I've settled on... So I'm not playing them for a few reasons. The first reason is I'm really happy with my number of reds. We play 12 out of 40. That's like 1.3 red cards per hand on average. You really want exactly 1 red card per hand, because you just want to play one red arcane spell on your turn, have 2 blues to pitch, and arsenal a blue arcane spell for your opponent's turn. So going much higher above 12 means that we start to decrease the consistency of that play pattern. So that's one reason we're not just shoving more high damage arcane spells in here. But also, if I wanted more reds, I would actually play the second Soul Tidings and some of the red Voltic Bolts before I would play the red 0 for 3s. And the reason for that is, think about this from a math perspective. So yes, the 0 for 3s are a 1-card hand that presents on-rate arcane. You spend 1 card, you get 3 arcane damage. But if we want to present as much arcane on our turn as possible, then we're like playing Encase, and then we're pitching a yellow or a blue to Waning Moon for 2. So it's 5 arcane damage total. At the same time, we could just be playing Vaulted Bolt, pitch a blue for 5 arcane, except it's from a single source, and so it gets over Arcane Barrier easier. This is also especially relevant for like Storm Strider's turns, where you want to stride in something that's as big as possible to like take out that last chunk of your opponent's health. So that's why the 0 for 3s don't quite make the cut. I know there was some talk about, is this a meta for Rewind? Because it's quite good in the Wizard Mirror. You can just rewind the non-attack action that your opponent is striding in, and then they cry because they gave up Arcane Barrier 2 and their free action point for nothing. I can definitely see the argument there. I think if the meta becomes... If your local meta is like all wizards, go for it. I'm not sold because it is a blue no block that is not an ice card. Like Blizzard is already close to not making the cut, and it's an ice card that strips a blue from our opponent's hand. There are matchups where Rewind is good, like Blood Rush Bellows is a big one because it discards an additional cost. Channelmount Heroic, sure. It's more of an edge card, tailor it to your meta. If you really do want to fit Rewind in somewhere, you probably just cut Ice Eternal, Winter's Bite, or Blizzard. They're probably the weakest cards in the list. Similarly, I've seen some arguments for Channel the Bleak Expanse. I don't recommend adding this one to your list at all. Like, the argument is that if there are new Azaleas running around, if there are Lexis with 3 of a kind, if there are Reinars with, again, Blood Rush Bellows, that's a good one that's in the argument for Channel the Bleak Expanse, because it stops all your opponent's card draw, searching, those kinds of effects. But a ice card that blocks 2, that has such a narrow application, it's not guaranteed to do anything against your opponent. That's a really hard sell, man. Like, Winter's Bite does something in every matchup. Channel 8 Frigid does something in every matchup. Channel Bleak Expanse has some matchups where it's absolutely dead. Even Blizzard does something in most matchups, right? There's really just Guardians that don't have any go again in their deck, or very little go again. So like, it's just not quite making the cut for me right now. I think we want to be as focused as possible in killing our opponent in 2 turns. And so Channel Bleak just ends up being like a slow answer to problems that we could just kill them in response instead. And then lastly, and this is probably the most contentious point of the list, is which attack actions to be playing. I've already kind of presented my case for Nourishing Emptiness as an attack that's almost always going to be on, almost always is going to get you that free +1 intellect, and is a really fantastic mirror breaker. But there are other very successful lists that play things like Fiondel's Fighting Spirit or Enlightened Strike. Now, E-Strike is great, ends up just being like whatever you need it to be. Can spend a 5-card hand if you choose the Go Again mode very easily. You can just turn it into a Raging Onslaught 2-card 7. Its most powerful mode is draw card, so it ends up being a 0 for 5. Excuse me. Like, the card is undeniably good, but it's just okay insofar as you put in 2 attacks in your deck, presumably 2, that you can't stride in. So like, you're already decreasing the consistency on just drawing a blind hand of being able to striders kill your opponent that turn. The same argument extends to Fiondel's Fighting Spirit, which is a popper that can regularly present either 3 block value, if you consider the life gain, or an offensive 8. But again, I'm of the opinion that we're trying to kill our opponent in 2 turns. We want to be as consistent as possible in presenting that game plan, which means that essentially every red in the deck, all but 1 with the Nourishing Emptiness, needs to be able to be Storm Stridered in to kill our opponent whenever we need to. So that's my reasoning for excluding the attack actions. And it's, at least in my experience, been working out so far. Those are the cards in the deck, what we're playing, what we're not playing. Let's look at the equipment. I think it's pretty simple, relatively standard. Waning Moon is just some of the most efficient arcane damage in the game. It's what enables this deck when you combine it with the Aether Hails and Emeritus Scoldings. Stormstriders is a no-brainer. This is Time Walk on an equipment if you're a Magic the Gathering fan. Just free action points are absolutely silly. It's what makes Wizard Wizard. It needs to be banned from Blitz. It's no really other way about it. It's stupid. Spellfire Cloak is our go-to chest, just because we're never... I won't say never. We very rarely get to turn 3. Usually by turn 2, someone's dead. Because this deck doesn't really block. It's much more interested in just laying down its hand offensively. And so Spellfire Cloak is probably the best way to get that free resource to pay for Stormstriders on our opponent's turn quickly into the game. Metacarpus Node is our go-to arm equipment. It's just +2 arcane on the kill turn, which can really help to kind of leap out of nowhere and kill our opponent from what they thought was a safe life total. Great for getting over that last bit of arcane barrier. And just like generally 2 resources for 2 damage. I mean, we pay that for Winning Moon all the time. Why would we not elect to also have that on our arms at instant speed? Lastly, Crown of Providence. Crown ends up being one of the biggest enablers for this deck. And I want to recommend that you actually be probably greedier than you think with your Crown blocks. I want to say in 7 rounds, there were 6 rounds that I blocked with Crown on turn 1, my opponent's turn 1. Just because I'm trying to have the ideal hand every turn, right? 1 Scalding Rain, red, 2 blues to pitch, and a blue Scalding Rain. If I draw a hand of no reds, I'll throw one on the bottom with Crown. If I draw a hand of 2 reds, I'll throw one of those reds on the bottom with Crown and just try to filter into that ideal hand basically the first turn of every game so that we can, as consistently as possible, immediately present our plan to our opponent. Excuse me. As far as our sideboard equipment goes, Alluvian Constellus is there for the Wizard Mirrors. Those games actually tend to go quite long. You get a lot of value out of Alluvian. Natural AB plus free Waning Moons. I mean, what more do you want? Coronet Peak is a bit interesting. So this is the closest thing to a flex spot I have in our equipment right now. At the Blitz 1K, I actually never presented Coronet. Theoretically, it's there for the games where we are really relying on Channel Light Frigid to keep us alive against our opponent. So like the ninjas, some flavors of Boost Dash, but you don't necessarily know that they're playing Boost Dash going into the matchup, in which case I would just blindly present Crown of Providence. And I think as the Blitz meta becomes more and more defined by wizards, because we have Stormstriders back, this should probably become Norrune Hood for the Iyslander mirror. I think Crown of Providence is fine in the mirror because everyone is playing at least 1 attack action, if not 2 to 4, because I think E-Strike and Findos Fighting Spirit is currently the more popular version of the list, even though I think it's not quite as good. And as you know, I present this arcane variant to the world, and hopefully people adopt it more. I think being able to stop AB5 and really preserve life totals in the mid game is going to be a more important use of that equipment slot. So this is the list I took, but if we're being honest about what I think you want to take to your skirmish, we're going to take out that Coronet Peak and just add in a Norrune Hood. Sorry, that was supposed to be a slick transition. It looks like I actually just got logged out of February, so we'll just worry about that later. Fatal Spring Tunic, really simple. This is for Guardians. They're basically the only games we expect to go beyond 3 turns because they have a lot of blues. They have Arcane Barrier 3. so the game actually can kind of slow down. You have to block a little bit. They don't die on turn 2 always, which is like crazy, I know. But basically Tunic is for Oldhim and the rare Bravo that you see. Gambler's Gloves, this is... Don't be convinced to play this into Rhinar. You're trying to kill Rhinar just like everybody else. This is for KO because no one wants to be hit by a swing bait on turn 2 for like 16, if not more. Hope Merchant's Hood is an interesting one. So I know a lot of people are tempted to just play Arcane Barrier 5 into Kano when you're playing the Wizard Mirror. I want to present an argument for Hope Merchant's Hood, which is that if you ever draw 4 reds against Kano, you just die. So Hope Merchant's Hood is a great safety valve there, even if you draw like 2 or 3 reds and it's Kano's go-off turn. Great way to give you another chance at winning by living through whatever kind of Blazing Aether nonsense they're presenting, just so that you have enough resources in hand. Because they're playing Crucible, they don't have Wildfire, so like, if they lessen up to 4 off Crucible, you have Arcane Barrier 4 to stop that. It's really just Aether Spindle is the only significant 5 breakpoint that they're presenting into us. It's the only card you like lose equity in by not presenting Norrøn Hood, and I think you gain a lot of equity by playing Hope Merchants just so that there's games that you don't lose on the spot when you draw a hand of 4 reds. And then lastly, Ironhide Gauntlet is for Benji, just because no one likes, similarly to Kano, no one likes drawing 4 reds losing to Kano. No one likes Benji having the double Spring Tidings turn 0, because you can block the first one with Crown of Providence, the second one you kind of just lose. So you play Ironhide Gauntlet for the second Spring Tidings specifically, and basically just for that. Like, don't be tempted to just throw this in front of any random Ride the Tailwind or whatever. That's all the equipment. That's when we're using them. We've talked about the main deck cards. And I've kind of hinted at this, but what does a typical play pattern look like with this deck? Well, so we almost always want to be going second. We want to set tempo in the game. We want to make our opponent, on the first real turn of the game, give up cards from hand so that we can then arsenal a blue arcane spell and start pushing damage on their turn 1. I typically consider the first, in my nomenclature, turn 0 is whoever goes first, the first turn of the game where like nothing actually matters because you draw up at the end. Both players draw up at the end. So we want to go second to set tempo. We want to hit for 11 every turn cycle by drawing 2 blue pitches, a blue arcane spell, and a red arcane spell. And so it's just play the red plus moon on our turn. Our turn, like actually Iyslander's turn, not like the funny my opponent and my's turn. Arsenal that blue arcane spell, draw back up on our opponent's turn. We probably don't block. We just play our arcane spell. From Arsenal plus Waning Moon, you're looking at 6 arcane your turn, 5 arcane their turn. 11 arcane damage across the turn cycle is a pretty consistent, reasonable thing to do with this deck. And it also just like is almost guaranteed to leak through your opponent's defenses. The odds they could kill you on turn 1 are like so low, which means that as early as their turn 2, you're setting up the Emeritus kill because you just have to push 5 through and then they're at that 15 kill range. That's really what the deck does. Like, I wish it was more complicated than that. That turn cycle of, red arcane your turn, blue arcane their turn, get ready for the kill. That's basically your game plan every matchup. Now, I say every matchup, there's one that's a major exception. It's the mirror. The mirror is quite complicated. And so I want to try to break it down because I get asked questions about it a lot. So I think there's 3 parts of the game in the mirror. There is the early game chip, the mid game steering contest, and then the last turn of the game, which can sneak up on you, and you need to be prepared for it. So you want to go second, just like we talked about against every other hero, just to set tempo in the game. If you do go first, remember you can hit yourself with arcane damage to charge your Luvian Constellus and just trying to get like some free damage equity, because it's very rare for you to have anything to set up on the board. Maybe you draw a Channel Lit Frigid you can play. It's worth doing. But both players in the early game are trying to chip their opponent down to around 10-ish life while preserving as much life of their own. But you have to be willing to give and take here. Give a little bit of your life to get your opponent into a reasonable kill range. Once you both hit the 10-ish range, it really becomes a matter of you find a good finisher blue, like your Emeritus Scolding, or an Ice Bolt, arsenal it, and then you want to be very judicious about when you start to play that. And the matchup ends up becoming like a staring contest. On your turn, there's a lot of turn cycles where on my turn I'm happy to just like play a red Scalding Rain, pitching a blue, leave 2 resources floating, and then my opponent at that point kind of has 2 decisions, right? They're at 10 life. If they pitch 2 cards to AB for the Scalding Rain, then they only have 2 cards in hand, and they're liable or they're open to dying on their next turn. So they pitch 1 blue, they leak 1. If they lunge and they try to present Arcane, we have 2 floating, so we're relatively safe from dying. And then again, they have nothing in hand for their turn, and they die. So it becomes this weird staring match where like you attack with 1 card and you like might leak 1 damage, or your opponent might just full prevent it. And then your opponent kind of does the same back, because if either person blinks, if either of you goes empty on their hand, the other person wins, which has kind of been historically true for Wizard Mirrors. You're just trying to dare them. Whoever dumps their hand onto the board first loses. And so you have to jockey into a position of, well, chip them down really slowly, convince them you have to give me your hand on this turn or else you die. And then on the next turn, you can punish that. Here's where I think nourishing is really important, because it forces, like I said earlier, you pitch a blue to it, you have 1 floating to charge a Luvian if they present any arcane. Guaranteed is going to push 3 damage, which is huge at this stage in the game. And with only 1 copy, you're more likely to see nourishing during this long staring contest than early in the game or late in the game, just from like a statistical perspective. It guaranteed pushes 3 through the dominate. It eats a card, or else it pushes 6, which is like, I mean, if they don't block it, you're just even happier. And it gives you a 5-card hand so that on your opponent's turn, you have an extra pitch card, both to survive and also to feed into your Stormstriders. Now, this is all like jockeying position. You're getting both players down low in life total. You're trying to create an opening where when you activate your Stormstriders to go in for the kill, you don't die to your opponent's crackback. Keep in mind, if we read Stormstriders, it's an instant that destroys Stormstriders as part of the cost to get the benefit of them. So when you activate Striders, they go away, and the layer to let you play your next non-attack action as an instant is a layer on the stack that your opponent can respond to. If they respond, your Stormstriders are already gone. You destroyed them as part of the cost to create the layer to play your next non-attack as an instant, which means you're down to Arcane Barrier, and your opponent is getting to respond before you get that free instant off of your Striders, where you've taken 1 to 2 cards from your opponent's hand. Either they just pass on the turn cycle with 2 cards in hand and you go in for the kill, or they try to play out, maybe they get greedy, they try to play out 1 card, they leave 1 to 2 cards in hand. That's when you can, if they're at, 6, 7 life, that's when you can start cracking in and trying to close out the game in that final turn cycle. And be careful about Sigil of Solace, because that is a reasonable card to play in Iyslander. It's a very good fake out card for the mirror. Just to arsenal that, respond to your opponent's lethal by playing it and kind of like getting a free 3 life out of arsenal. And so, yeah, you're trying to whittle your opponent down, get them into a range where you can kill them through 2 cards and they can't kill you back. It's not easy to do. It's not super intuitive. That was a very rambly way to describe it. Maybe we'll see it live in gameplay in a second. But those are at least a rudimentary overview of the mirror. That's the deck, all the equipment, the main cards, why we are and aren't playing them. And that's kind of the deck tech I prepared for today. So if you liked that, like, please go bring this out to your skirmish. It's relatively cheap outside of Crown of Providence and Storm Striders. I know those are expensive. I wish there were more reasonable budget options. But the fact that like you get to play Spellfire Cloak as your default chest over Tunic, I think is really cool because it opens up Wizard to more players that are more on the budget end of things. I hope you enjoyed this deck at your skirmish. Like I said, I'm Mezzo. This is on Hit Effect. Please like, subscribe. If you're really enjoying my content, turn on that notification bell so that you can know when I'm going live in the future. But that's the deck tech. We're not done with this stream. We get to do the fun part now, which is gameplay. Typically, I do constructed CC in this channel. So these blitz games should go really, really fast. I'm also more open to talking to chat now. I was kind of focused on getting through all of that, but vibes should be a bit more chill now. How are we doing? Okay. YouTube has stopped throwing a fit about connections being bad. Any of y'all playing skirmishes this weekend? I personally have one on Saturday. Obviously, Easter Sunday makes it hard to find events both days of the weekend. Hey, Neil, welcome. Got here just in time to catch some gameplay. For anyone that's joining in recently, you should be able to just scrub backwards in time through the stream if you want to check out the deck tech part of the video before you cut straight to the gameplay. Lobby is kind of empty. Did I select public? I selected private. That's hilarious. Looks like I accidentally got signed out, so give me just a moment. Can't be sharing my password with you all. There we go. All right, competitive blitz, public server. Let's try to get some gameplay in. Skirmish is sealed this weekend. I think my local skirmish is sealed as well. There is a store that's like an hour drive away that's playing Blitz. So I'm not sure if I want to add an hour to my drive to play Blitz versus Outsiders sealed. Outsiders is pretty sick limited format, but also like Iyslander living legend points. It's a hard decision either way. I am hoping at least to get at least one skirmish in. One Blitz skirmish in this season. Because I'm really afraid that this is Iyslander's last skirmish season. She needs to win like 70 events, I think, to LL out of the format. We have 2. The second is Blitz, but I won't be able to do that one. Oh, it's disastrous, Templar. I'm so sorry. Well, it's a good thing Talishar exists for all of your... This is pointing the wrong way for y'all. Emperor, huh? This... We're just going to play our default loadout because this game should last like a turn. They have all reds. do have AB4, but they have all reds, which means that like they just died with stiff arcane breeze. So I was talking earlier about, you know, turn 0 Ice Eternal, pretty good. Oh, I need to turn Metacarpus nodes off. Opponent just starting here with 2 Frostbites when they have all red cards in deck means that we just get to have a free first turn, essentially. Social's pretty good. Do not want to waste Metacarpus nodes on first turn of the game. Just gonna throw this efficient arcane spell in arsenal. Oh, that's a nice trick to get around the frostbites. Our opponent has 3 resources, so there's never a world where we make Waning Moon here. We just arsenal pass. So here's a great example of a hand where it's the first turn of the game and I'm willing to use Crown of Providence because I would love to sink this Swell Tidings and probably draw a blue. With this hand currently, it looks like pitching Polar Blast to play Aether Quickening plus Waning Moon. On our turn, playing Aether Quickening, pitching Swell Tidings, arsenal the Ice Bolt. But if we can get an extra 2 arcane damage by sinking the Swell Tidings into a blue, we're going to take that. Opponent is choosing to attack for 7 with 2 red cards in hand. I am pretty dang happy to just eat 7, I think. By eat 7, I mean 5, because we went the sink. This also keeps us out of Emperor's kill range. I believe he can kill from 13, I want to say. Beautiful. Imagine this is just pass on the turn now. It is, but that is not so fast from us. So Furnace doesn't do anything because he doesn't have reds in pitch already. Please no bully us up north. Don't know quite what you mean, Colin, but I can guarantee... Interesting, it's just an arsenal that card instead of pitching it to Furnace in response to Moon to stop 2. But I can guarantee you, Colin, that I'm not playing any version of Bully Iyslander, at least. All arcane spam all the way. No worries, Colin. Sink below seems brash when there's so many wizards in the format. It's honestly one of my least favorite parts about Blitz is the lack of sideboarding means that like these cards are just so dangerous to include in your deck. Because like, oh my god, the games where you play against Kano and you draw Sink below, ugh. Do we want to go for the kill here? We get punished if they have Sigil in Arsenal. But at the very least, we can just pitch a blue to stop 1 here on our Arcane Barrier. I guess we can let them resolve Metacarpus. Opponent's at 7. They let the Frostbite resolve, so they're just dead. 4, 7 exactly. Yeah, they're just dead. So if they had Sigil, they needed to play it in response to the Frostbite with 0 resources floating and a Frostbite resolved. It means the Sigil's locked in Arsenal. They can't play it. All right, well, as promised, I told you this deck kills on turn 2. Average damage value per turn, 14. How about that? Now, Emperor is a bit of an exception because that deck necessarily plays all red cards. But, hey, you're going to see them at skirmishes. There's a lot of Emperor fans out there, interestingly. Not sure why you wouldn't play your real wizard, but like, that's just me trash talking. Here's a real wizard. Here is the matchup I am most afraid of. Because I think this one's genuinely unfavored for us, to be honest. Oh no, my Hope Merchant said. Let me select Hope Merchant said. There we go. Let's see. Kano likes going first against low AB opponents and second against high AB opponents. So we go second. Well, we forgot to select Olivian Constellus. There we go. Okay. Hood, Constellus, Node, Striders. That was almost really bad. Almost went in with the wrong equipment. It's the typical Kano loadout. Not in love with this opening hand. Opponent just saw nothing that they really liked. Fine by me. They have AB4. We have to present some amount of Arcane this turn. I think what I want to do is play Swell Tidings, pitching Scalding Rain and Cold Snap, over pitching, leaving 2 floating. So that we have a reasonable offensive turn. We have 2 resources buffer, and we naturally have the Ice Bolt to Arsenal. Now, let's be clear, I'm not planning on swinging Waning Moon here, unless they just like eat the damage, maybe. Ooh. Well, now I am interested in swinging Waning Moon because they pitched 2 non-blue cards, which means they might be resource short. They might not, like, they have 3 cards, we're 18, we can't die. Oh yeah, well that was a very bad hand for Kano. This hand is exactly why we play Hope Merchant's Hood in Wizard Mirrors. Because we just massively win this turn cycle. Oh man. Seven, 11. We can't kill them this turn, but we can get we get really close. It's fine though. I'm pretty happy to just let Kano draw back up we're going to present 7 Arcane on our turn. Have an Ice Bolt and Emeritus Scolding in hand. If we had 3 blues in hand, I definitely would have played Ice Bolt last turn, I think. But keeping like a relatively lethal threat in Arsenal, plus having the Scolding, having that combination going into the next turn cycle, plus still presenting a reasonable offense here on our turn, it's worth giving up a little bit of turn efficiency on that previous turn cycle, especially considering we already got damage through on our prior turn. This is a very defensive Kano. They need to mount an offense at some point, or else we just win because they aren't doing anything. They're probably just dead. Let's see. We have all 9 resources. We can present 14. We're only blown out by Sigil of Solace. I think we start going for it here. Seven. Yeah, we have to give Metacarpus, which I'm kind of fine with. If we go to AB3 and they live, it's fine. Letting the Frostbite resolve, which means they probably don't have Sigil in Arsenal. This is for 4. We'll get to see what's in their hand, or they just take it. We're happy with either. Okay, we win. Because Emeritus Scolding Red with a Metacarpus node is for 7 Arcane. Definitely seemed like Kano was having some awkward hands that game. I don't know if he was just being greedy and playing too many reds, or if it was just a true variance game. Hard to tell. Man, these Blitz games are so fast. It was 5 minutes. There was a funny story, which was the first round of the top 8 at that Blitz 1K. I was playing against Matt McInnes on Chain. So kind of the entire top 8 started all at once, right? We all started playing our games at relatively the same time. And Matt and I sat down, rolled out play mats, rolled dice, shuffled up, presented. I went first. I think I leaked a point of damage through. He took his first turn, pushed some more damage with like a blue Aether Hail or whatever. My turn was like red Ice Bolt. It was his turn too. He dies to double Emeritus. Game lasted about 3 minutes, and we packed up. We put all of our stuff away. Judge walked over and was like, "So are y'all ready to start playing?" We played the entire game and finished before most people had finished shuffling and presenting their decks. The consistency and speed of what is allegedly this like ice control hero as an aggressive Arcane deck is just obscene. And it's facilitated by Stormstriders. If we don't have them, that kill turn that we just saw is for 7, not 14. You lose half of the firepower. Oh, we got a rematch. Opponent getting to choose first or second this time. Presumably they take second. Yep. Okay. So here is an example where we don't go for the Ice Eternal X equals 2 offensively. Because if we do that, Kano dumps their hand and we get real sad. So what are we going to do here? I think... Man, this hand's trying to gas. I think we have to just pass the turn, though. Put the Scalding Rain into Arsenal. Because we don't want to empty resources out of our hand and let Kano go off in response. Wow, this hand is straight gas. That is an aggressive Tome of Aetherwind. Alright, show me what you got, Kano. This is where they hit Moon off, hit Eye off the top. Uh-oh. Am I having internet issues again? I think we're all healthy. There we go. Okay. I think we want to be willing to take this damage because there's probably more significant damage coming later in the turn. What else do they got? They got 4 cards. I imagine at least one more Kano is coming. Do not like our posturing in this game, although this hand is really good. Excuse me, it is almost dinner time. Thinking about this Kano activation. Hey, there's a card that we wanted to save our blues in hand for. Opponent still has 2 resources floating. We're not super incentivized to present this Scalding Rain. Yeah, I'm kind of just happy to end the turn there. We have a spare blue in hand on our turn. That's a scary card. That's not as scary. The tempo in these wizard matches are pretty insane. He's playing Tome to draw 2. He has a Scalding Rain. He has to find something real to play off the top. Moon's pretty real. Well, knowing that there's a blazing, our cards are just worth a lot more defensively. Every time we pitch, we're stopping 2 damage. Going to end, that's fine. So our opponent is down a Blazing, down a Spindle, down 3 Tomes. We're basically just weathering a storm, letting him run out of gas at this point. Because he's gotten 2 points of damage through. We are going to have to push damage at some point, but like if we're just not dying. Here's a turn where I might consider Hood. To put this red Ice Bolt and Swell Tidings back in the deck. We'll ponder it. We're not there yet. We are pitching for sure, though. This is with action point? Yeah. No, we need to hope before. It's fine. We'll play out Scalding here. Get a bit of damage through. So this is a dangerous turn. We're probably just passing if our opponent goes off. We hope these 2 reds away. Got through. This is not good, my friends. Not good. Opponent's at 13, 1 card in hand, pitch 2 reds, probably a blue in hand. Which means we are unlikely to kill. They have a Nourishing. We can only get to 15. If they have a blue, they live at 1. We die. Alright, well, we've got to start by fixing this hand. Because our opponent's going to have 6 cards next turn. Oh. From one Nourishing to another. That's hilarious. Okay. Well, we have a game plan now, at least. Which is that we're going to eat this Nourishing, send back our own, have 4 resources, probably just die, but this game's posturing was really weird from the start. Yeah, and now they have a bunch of blues. That is definitely a card we want to AB as much as possible. The good news is if we live through this turn, we almost certainly win. The fact that our opponent pitched a lesson is a good sign for us. It's not like they have a depot out, so maybe they are relatively blue light here. Oh yeah, we're stopping all that damage. Now we're shields down though. If they can find 9 off of 4 cards, which is pretty damn reasonable, then it's GG. Sounds like it's GG. Oh yeah, it's GG. And that's why Nourishing is the mirror breaker. I think that's pretty fair. Kano is far and away the matchup I'm scared of the most with this deck. Because a good Kano in Blitz is just so hard to beat. Like, that deck can do literally everything and win basically any game. Deck I'm second most scared of is probably Prism, but even that is just like a 40-60 at best, or at worst for Prism. Hopefully we can get a little bit more variety in our games. We have played against 2 wizards so far, and we are a wizard. Kind of definitely speaks to the state of the Blitz meta, I'll say that. With Stormstriders illegal in a format, it's hard to not play a deck that you can play them in. I would prefer to stay in the competitive Blitz queue, but the format is not super duper popular, so we may have to go to regular Blitz if we want to find consistent games. We'll give this a minute or two. And if we haven't found anything by then, we'll hop into regular Blitz and just absolutely smoke some people. Here we go. This is a real matchup. Definitely playing default. Want to go second if our opponent has turn 0 Channelment Heroic. That's what they've got. Yep. Nothing fancy here. It's a great opening hand. Get to block 9 Arsenal and Aether Quickening. That's funny. So this has no text because there are no cards in the graveyard. So we'll just give up the worst card in our hand. I don't know what does this 1 mean on Talishar? It's the first chain link, maybe? I haven't seen that before. That is an impressively early Vex and Quill hand. Don't see how it's correct. Oh, damn it. So, Talishar issue there. I selected Arcane Barrier 2 instead of 1 for the rune chant damage, which is a technically legal play. They're both replacement effects that prevent arcane damage, but like, it's just strictly, why would you ever give up 2 resources to stop 1 damage when you can pay 1 resource to stop 1 damage? So that was like the misclick there. So we went to pitch 1 and the same, because presumably this has Rosetta Thorn after it. So we're not getting to keep any card from this hand, and a bit of damage is going to leak, which is unfortunate, but it happens. This is worth giving Providence. Sure. This is an incredibly aggressive Briar strat. Not sure how it's going to pay off for them. Oh yeah, that was for 2 because they didn't play non-attack. That's funny. So we start down 5. But hand is straight gas. Yep, hand is straight gas. Choosing to take it all, wow. They have Arcane Barrier 2. The odds we die next turn are impressively low. The odds they die next turn is we draw Red Emeritus and they go empty, which seems unlikely. So it's probably more reasonable to Arsenal Scalding Rain here. Ice Bolt presents Frostbite though, and we can use the last floating for Arcane Barrier. It might be Ice Bolt here is the correct arsenal. Do they have anything in the yard that we care about give and take? Not really. Can we use all our cards offensively? We can. So we're probably just taking 6 here. This is Rosetta afterwards. Sick. So we always want to Arsenal Aether Hail over Scalding Rain if we can. Our turn is going to be Scalding Rain, Pitch Polar Blast, which is underwhelming, but it happens. This would have been a prime hand to try to fix with Crown of Providence, but stopping the card draw on turn 1 was pretty relevant. If our opponent continues to just eat whatever we throw at them, then we just win. Just gonna go ahead and turn on Metacarpus nodes because we're probably, this is the last turn of the game. Five, 8, 11, 8. Let's think about this in terms of unblockable. 3, 4, 5. We need to let them empty their hand a bit more. Adding Lightning Surge to hand, that's not a very useful attack. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 resources available to us. If they don't present lethal this turn and we don't need to pop off, it's probably a not play Aether Hail, block with Aether Quickening and Frosting, and on our turn just play Hail plus Cold Snap. But we're going to try to bait them into walking into a kill here. Like this. This is them walking into a kill. Cool, so they have Lightning Surge in hand, 2 resources available essentially. Can we present 10 Arcane? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks like we can, aka we win. So let's walk through the steps. Yep. Here's 3. Here's 3. And there's 5. Seems like our opponent is trying to pitch for Arcane Barrier, despite having no cards in hand. There's the disconnect. So we take that game. Seems like a rage quit before the official damage goes through. How we doing, chat? It's 8:20. We've been going for a little under an hour and a half. Oh yeah, so that's like 8 more Blitz games, right? Let's go. We're gonna be prideful though and wait for claiming victory on this inactive opponent. There we go. Let's try to join a game. It worked! Oldhim! Oh no. This one can be a pain in the butt sometimes. We went Tunic, game's starting to go long. Definitely went Metacarpus. What's gonna happen here? Is it aggro Oldhim? It is. AB3 Earthlore Bounty and Stalagmite. Well, I have... So this is a bad news for him. We're not going to attack with anything this game. He can block out Nourishing, so we just block with it every time we see it. This is a Frosty 4. It's interesting. I think we actually just went to make sure we have the Aether Quickening in hand. So we're going to take one here. It's not like you can pummel it. But we've already blocked with our best kill spell. So let's just make sure we have a good threat to present next turn. Chef's Kiss, the ideal hand. So like, here's where things get really awkward for this deck, right? Are you going to give me a card for 2 damage? Like, it's Blood Rot Pox at that point, and no one wants to pay for Blood Rot Pox. The answer is no, I get to leak 3. Dominate, huh? I wasn't planning on blocking anyways, so I think you can have Dominate. No. The Seismic Surge is cool. Earthlore Bounty is such a sweet card. Actually, we might block here. We might block with 1 card, and we do. It's just going to be Swell Tidings. Our turn is just going to be play Voltic Bolt. chip in for 2 more. Asked another awkward question of, do you want to give me a card for 2 damage? Nope. This is a do-nothing hand. Yuck. Okay, fused it. Honestly, I'm kinda... So because it's fused, we either have to take 8 or just like not have a turn next turn. He absolutely can pummel this. I'm kind of just happy to lay down our hand though, because we weren't doing anything anyways. I'm going to take an off turn this turn cycle. Oh, yucky. Showing us a blue. Is this actually like fine? We don't die to pummel. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so here's what we do. We block 3. If he pummels us, we discard Scolding. On our turn, we just play Scalding Rain, Pitch Hail. Still have Scalding Rain in Arsenal. The card is not moving. Show me the pummel. Nope. Really happy with that exchange then, because now we just get to sandbag this Emeritus Scolding. Potentially kill Oldhim on their next turn. This is a weird game insofar as I haven't blocked with Providence yet. Just hasn't really been a reasonable opportunity to yet. Might be on this next hand. We might just dig for a spare blue so we can fire off this Scolding. Or we just draw the nuts. 7, 10, 13, 1 and 1. Gross. So we don't have the kill, but what we do have is playing Scalding, arsenaling Emeritus Scolding, setting up for the kill in a future turn cycle. Oldhim has to choose between swinging Hammer here or taking damage this turn. So how much damage can we force through this Channel 8? Not enough. Not enough is the answer. It is blue Kano Mo. It's basically... This is already our second Emeritus. What's the play here? Like, we have to block, right? Are we... Oh, you know what we're doing? They can't pummel. So we're blocking 5. We're going to try to filter this Ice Bolt into a real card. Play the real card, pitching Quickening. And then again be set up for the kill. I think that's a pretty reasonable line. All right, not ideal. We can still just play the Quickening on our turn. Channel Laker's gone, which is what stopped us from killing on the last turn. And odds are this leaks 1 damage, because it's 2 and 2 arcane. Actually choosing to take 0. Okay. That's fine. So we're punished exactly by Sigil. We actually don't have to commit Metacarpus on the first Scolding though. We can present 14, and if he has a blue in hand and no Sigil in Arsenal, he still dies. We know it's not a pummel, so it really smells like a Sigil. We'll see if he chooses to prevent this damage at all. Oh, it's a red. We kill through Sigil. Let's go. Alrighty. So we actually, I got way too greedy and did math wrong. We don't kill through Sigil there. But it's pretty clear he didn't have it. And he had Arcane Barrier 3 anyways. So like, as soon as we just draw any arcane spell we can play that's deals 4 damage, we win anyways. A little bit greedy there, greedier than I should have been for sure, but we got there. Stream's going pretty smoothly, relatively like what I expect out of a skirmish, which is cool. Like, this is a pretty good simulation. Simulation of what I expect this weekend, at least. It's gonna be hard not to go to that Blitz skirmish. Lobby looks like it might be slowing down a bit. Try to get at least a game or two more before we end it. So Mo, let me pose you a question. Is Iyslander blue Kano or is Kano red Iyslander? Because I definitely know which hero is more popular. Spoiler alert, it's not Kano. But I'm a teeny bit biased. Ah, come on. Surely someone wants to play a competitive Blitz game. Sealed is definitely a fine choice for Skirmish. This is, Outsiders, I should say, far and away is the most fun I've had in a sealed format in ever in Flesh and Blood. Interesting, Templar. You want to play Benji because I'm always looking to open a sick Arachne pile. Like Uzuri ends up being the default, right? If you don't draw all of the red stealth cards out of your pool. But man, a good Arachne that can just like convert 13, 14, 15 damage value offensively out of a hand every turn is so hard to beat because most cards in this set are worth 2. Best set for you since Welcomed Wraith. Been playing since the beginning. I am extremely jealous. I got into the game like a week before Tales of Aria release. It definitely has influenced what my favorite heroes are for sure. But what I would give to be able to go back and just open a cold foil tunic back at the start. Arachne is absolutely disgusting in draft. Absolutely. I don't remember if this is our same opponent from the last game, but always down for a little rematch. It probably is, considering Earthlore Bounty and the changed up equipment. What do they got? Show me the Dominated Glacial. But the missing Cold Foil Tunic is a big point of pain. It's the only Cold Foil Tunic and 2 Cold Foil Energy Potions is all I'm missing, and then Iyslander is as Cold Foil as it can be. I've got a lead on a new E-Pot. I'm just broke because college students, it's a life. Oh, there is the Glacial, but it looks like it couldn't be fused. So we're looking at Vanilla 4. Happy to sculpt this hand. Hopefully we draw 2 blues and just be in for a good time on our turn. Oh, that's right. Arc was right around COVID, huh? The start of COVID. Heaving a Thunderquake. Wow. Well, we got there. In terms of hand filtering, pretty sure I still want to Arsenal this Quickening. Maybe we Arsenal the Scolding. Depends on how Oldhim pitches here. He took 2. He took 2. So he's afraid of Arcane on his turn. It sounds like Arsenal Quickening, get ready to block a lot. Oh, but this hand is so good. I don't want to block with it. I totally clicked the wrong card to Arsenal. That's fine. Sold a Cold Foil Cross Wrap for $60. Oh my god, I'm so jealous, Templar. You don't want to know how much I had to pay for my Cold Foil Stormstriders. Ooh, an aggressive go again on this Enlightened Strike. Man, he's so close to dead, but just not quite. I'm not really interested in blocking this, I don't think. Yeah, he goes empty. So I think we punish with 7 Arcane, block 6, and just move on with the next turn cycle. Actually, we might sandbag the Swell Tidings. Play a little bit of a my turn, your turn, off turn style. Can we afford to take 7? We go to 6? Yeah, that's fine. Well, this is awkward. Looks like this is a Crown of Providence hand if I've ever seen it. Arc is still my favorite set. Azalea my favorite here in the game. Playing Lexi for so long, I'm happy Azalea finally got good support. I have also been having an absolute ton of fun with Azalea in Classic Constructed. More so than I expected. 5 Dominate. Hey, guess what blocks 5 Dominate? Crown of Providence. And we can't get pummeled. This is just like absolute no punish. I can't believe it didn't throw Macho there. Oh, he couldn't. Yeah, he just couldn't. Okay, cool. Well, I love our position in this game now. Get to arsenal this Ice Bolt. Get to present 7 Arcane here. Yeah, that bet I had with Levi was weird because we both thought Azalea was still going to be relatively bad after Outsiders. Then it turned out she was good, and what was supposed to be a punishment ended up being like, oh no, this is just a lot of fun and also a good deck. I would kill for a cool foil cross wrap Templar, so it's cool that you've gotten to open and play with them in the past before. Oh yeah, this game is over. This game is over. Let's just go ahead and turn on Metacarpus nodes. Our opponent knows it too. All right, let's do some quick math. 3 resources off Metacarpus. 5, 7. Pitched ice here. So we can actually block 3, still kill our opponent in response to pummel. If they don't pummel, we take 1. We get to present more Arcane on our turn. How did I do in the 5K? I played Azalea. I played the same 80 as Levi. We kind of worked together to build that list. Though, let's be real, it was mostly his work. Like, dude's a monster with everything Azalea, deck building, and piloting. I went 4-3 on the day, which, you know, for playing Azalea for a month, I'm kind of okay with that. I had a loss in round 3 to my good friend Kevin from the US, which is a bit of an inside joke with us. It's Kevin Briar. Great guy. One of the best rune blades I know. And I got Channel Mount Heroic out of the game before I had any of my real obscene turns. Only had 1 red in the ledger, and it wasn't particularly impressive. I dropped a second game to... what's his name? Really good Canadian Toronto-based player. Played Big Dragon Dromai. Now this is a kill hand. And that game just wasn't particularly close. I was Iyslander, I smashed in semis. Oh, hey, what's up, Nathaniel? Or Nate, right? Nathan? One of those nicknames. Welcome. I just actually don't care that this winner will is being presented, right? I let him... Was it Isaac Crute? No, Isaac was playing Lexi in both events, I believe. It wasn't Isaac, regardless. Doesn't matter what I call you. Cool. All right, let's give our opponent an opportunity to pummel this, which is a mistake. They don't, so we're just trying to kill them anyways. I'm glad you liked that game, Nathaniel. It was a blast, for sure. Resource math. Can we pay for double Metacarpus? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have to miss the first Metacarpus trigger. So we're not paying for it here. Yeah, Briar is a pain for Azalea still. It ends up just being like an aggro race, right? You're both aggro decks. It's just one goes wide and one goes tall. Yeah, it's game. Oh, I didn't even get to stride in the good card. And then wrapping up the 5K, I dropped one more game in the very last round to a Oldhim that fatigued me. It's just, man, seven staunch responses is a lot to get through, and couldn't quite close it out. We had a game plan into fatigue Oldhim with like pitch stacking a little damage combo, but I'm still pretty bad at it, and so I couldn't convert. Ended 4-3, not the worst. Went to go second. Need to fix my equipment for sure. Tar Pit is definitely a consideration. I don't know how much equity you gain between Tar Pit and Sink Below. I think if you have one or the other, it's probably just fine. It's kind of like choose your own flavor of D-React. But it definitely is on the radar in terms of like cards to test. This is a pretty brain dead hand. Just going to try to hold Swell Tidings. The die roll in this Wizard Mirror is so important. It's really silly. Oh, they're just passing. Alright, that's fine. Let's try to play Swell. I'm not interested in Metacarpus notes here. Played Oldhim with Unmovables, Red and Blue Turn Timber, full Earth build. Yuck. That is a lot of damage prevention from our opponent. Let's punish them for it. That just seems like wrong. Yeah, they went first. They didn't want free counter. They're just throwing blues at our arcane damage. Seems like it's going to be a fast game. Stop to 15 dominated riddle. I cried a little. That's disgusting, Templar. So we don't really need to fire off the Scalding yet. Kind of more interested in building up Cancellus counters in the early game. We actually can just stop all four here. I think we do. We're still at 18. We'll have a resource floating when we play this Ice Bolt on our turn. Kano can kill from 18, 19 effectively. I mean, you just lose those games. No matter what. And importantly, this should push a damage or two and really get him into starting to be lethal range. This is definitely a greedy play for sure. But I don't think we can get punished too hard for it. Oh yeah, just passing? Awesome. Yuck. Not really what we want to see. So right now the plan is to play Scalding plus Constellus. asked Kano the question, do you want an arsenal or do you want to take 5 damage? What did me and Levi think about Widowmaker? No, Brody ran it but didn't test it. It is... So I don't know how much I can say because we are still like prepping for the Pro Tour and we haven't like discounted Azalea by any means. It's definitely on our radar. No D-Reacts in general is good, but the blocked by 2 card clause just never happens because Chronoseed's block 0 doesn't null block, and so they can just put a card plus crown in front of basically everything. And a 1 for 4 arrow is like fine, but not really where you want to be. So I don't know where we... I honestly don't have a well-informed opinion about it. I'm still testing. Oh man, we just got the free arsenal there. We need to draw a red arcane spell and then we're like probably winning. This Tano list looks a lot like our list. A lot like our list. I for sure have been really high on Sedation Shot. It's just finding room in the list is so tight. Seems like a limited card. It's fantastic in limited. Jesus Christ. Want to pitch... Do we want to fire off this Voltic Bolt and Arsenal? Not really. So we just save life. No, we do. No, we don't. They've got 4 cards. We just want to save life. Yeah. I didn't even consider that Vambrace technically can block multiple times. It's pretty funny. Very niche interaction that is never really relevant in limited. All right, we're not going to be tempted to play the Channel 8 Frigid here. It's like fine, but 17. Kano has 5 cards. No Constellus. We're so far ahead in game state here, I feel like we don't press our luck. We wait until we draw a relevant red, because that hand just didn't do anything. Oh man, kind of bricking, I'll be real. Hold of Embrace at your last draft. Stop Widow 3 times. Your 5 copies of Widowmaker in a limited deck. Okay, that's obscene. Let alone the part where you drafted Vambrace. Like, a card is so good. I guess it really is kind of fringe and limited, huh? But like, brush off. There's peace of mind. It's got applications in limited. I don't want to give 4 here. We'll throw 3. There's a Constellus counter. If he moons, we're interested in playing the Voltic Bolt at this point. Asked if his last card is a red. He chose to take 3, so we've won. We just want to arsenal this Ice Bolt and then win next turn. Man, these Wizard Mirrors are so feast and famine. It just feels like there's one person obviously in control. Or, I should clarify, these Iyslander Kano mirrors. Iyslander mirrors are a lot of good back and forth. I think it's my favorite matchup in Fab. Playing Tome, sure, go ahead and drop. You got 6 cards. Can you kill me? Lost another friend on Riptide because he drafted 12 traps. Everyone was going for Assassin. They gave him every trap card. That's why he went Azalea. Why you went Azalea. I think 12 traps is a record as far as I've heard. This is for 2, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You pitch 2 reds, take 2. Ending the turn. I don't think we can kill through 3 cards in hand is the issue. He knows he's screwed. 5, 9, 12. 3, 6, 9, 12. Oh, we might actually just get there. That's funny. But like ours, also, do we have any incentive to? Because we just played Quickening on our turn. It takes 2 cards, or a card. Yeah, we just let him have it. Casual drafts get pretty nutty. Yeah, I've had some very interesting casual draft pods as well. There's no argument to play CLF there, right? Nah. Nah. Getting greedy and playing CLF there is how we lose the game. Because we're dumping resources out of our hand. And Kano, we are at 13 and Kano has 5 cards and can sell us up. Like, there's a world where you put too many resources on the table and then die. But now Kano's dead. It's fine for a red. Fish for a red, I should say. That works. Emeritus Scolding is basically a red as far as offensive damage goes. That's the game. Okay, well, that was a nice little set of Blitz games. I think I hit everything I wanted to cover in the deck tech. We got some good gameplay examples. Pretty relevant representation of the meta too. Like, bunch of wizards, handful of Oldhims, the odd aggro deck in Briar. I feel like all we were really missing was Prism. Prism plays a lot like that Briar game. Like, you mostly ignore what they're doing and you just go face. And it's even more effective than usual because most of their cards are yellow, not blue. So yeah, it's like slightly harder Guardian Prism. But that's the deck. That's a little bit of how you play the deck. I love this deck to bits. I hope that you enjoy it as well. This is just kind of my way of sharing one of my favorite ways to play Flesh and Blood with all of you. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I'll catch you later. See ya.